Detonation. Today we have an awesome episode, really cool episode, because I've been wanting to get this guest on, really special guest. It's Roen from Eternal Life Fan Club. How are you, Roen?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you for having me here.
Ah, it's so good to see you finally, because we've got so much to speak about. You've got such a great YouTube channel. It's actually my honor to have you on because yeah, your YouTube channel is really awesome. You got multiple channels now. You've got millions of views on your videos. You're a creator. You're an innovator. You're an Eternal Life fanboy. You're you're a supplement genius. You're a whole bunch of things. An entrepreneur. Tell the people like just a bit about who you are, what how you got into the industry, why you're motivated to do so many cool things in the life extension space.
Definitely. Thank you for that intro. That was wonderful. And yeah, I started on Facebook. That's where the Eternal Life Fan Club really started. And that's when I really made a lot of memes with images and then would post things on Facebook and a lot of quotes from different transhumanists. And so the Eternal Life Fan Club was meant to be a vehicle to just spread transhumanism and ultimately living forever. That's what it really boiled down to for me, because I have an extreme fear of death. I always have for as long as I can remember. And that's what drove me to find transhumanism eventually, because I just didn't want to die. And as a kid, I would be always on my bed at nighttime wondering if I'd die in my sleep, and just thinking about my parents dying and just how sad that would be to lose them. So once I heard that aging was something that could be potentially cured, it just seemed obvious. Why not do this? Though I was raised religiously, and and you'll see religious influence in my writings and my videos everywhere, because that's just like it was inborn into me. And actually, that was like partly what was responsible, I think, for getting me so obsessed with the idea of living forever and eternal life, because like Christianity and religions, like it's all about eternal life. Like that's the end game, right? So at least with transhumanism and religious people, there's still the same end game, so we could share a lot of common ground there.
Yeah,
Although
absolutely.
in a different way, because religious people, they all think there's the afterlife, right? But and then that can sometimes hinder transhumanist progress if they're, attacking what transhumanists are doing. That's not good.
Yeah. I'll speak to you more on death and my perspective on that soon. But you did a montage of people talking about whether they want to live forever, and sliced into there was Zoltan Itzvan, and you put in there purposely his quote saying that he thinks that religion has stifled the human species. It's been a hindrance on progress. You put that in there, so obviously you agree with that notion.
In some ways, absolutely, because religion was doing things against like stem cell therapy, right? And so, absolutely, there are avenues of religion that are absolutely doing horrible things and stopping all kinds of progress. I would like to see that change, and I'd hope that there'd be more religious-minded people. Um, just because you believe in a God doesn't mean you can't also want to cure aging just for the sake of suffering. It seems to end suffering. It seems completely in alignment, and they shouldn't be so opposed. But there is this war, and then all the religious people are always afraid of the mark of the beast and everything. Um, so yeah, there's just conflict there, I guess.
Yeah, and also there was the illusions of the Dark Ages. That there was such a moratorium on progress in the Dark Ages, and that a religion has been at the center of a lot of the fueled conflicts around the world. So religion has been an interesting adventure in the human species. If you're an evolutionist, you know. Religion would be naturally part of the evolutionary cycle. Are you an adherent to Ernst Becker and,
Oh yeah, I've
and
made
some
a
of
lot
his
of
teaching?
quote pages of Ernest Becker, and he's been featured in my videos several times. Yeah, he is a great inspiration. The denial of death and everything. I loved it. he's amazing. Yeah, he's a great inspiration.
Yeah, because if you're an adherent to Ernst Becker's, the death theories that it's that we are subjective beings looking upon being subjective to
Yeah.
ourselves, being observed, like being our own instruments of observation, then religion makes sense. Then the wars and the horrors that spring up through that would obviously make sense then, because it's a way to apply meaning to essentially what would be a nihilist's sort of a Nietzschean philosophy of meaninglessness, because it brings meaning despite the destruction, because the more destruction, the more meaning, right?
Yeah, yeah. So I often thought that. So what was interesting is that when I started my fan club, I was an atheist at that time, and I thought, and I was telling everyone, okay, if it's everyone who believes in God is just obviously a coping mechanism for death and everything. But I wasn't thinking there are potentially ways, because people want there to be a God and an afterlife to live forever, so that's why they would want to believe that. But there are potentially ways where you could believe in a God, but then also not believe in an afterlife. Like that's a thing too. Nobody talks about that. So just because you believe in God, it's like you should still want to live forever physically. And then it also made sense that there's a lot of agnostic people, and agnosticism makes sense because no one can know for sure if there's a God. And that's why everyone, regardless if you believe in God or not, you should want to cure aging, just because this is the only life we know for sure exists. So that's always made sense to me. Then eventually I did, and that was more recently, like in the last, I think it was a year ago, I ended up believing in God again. I kind of returned back to my belief in God, but my fear of death didn't leave me. I still feared death just the same. I still wanted to cure aging just as much, So it's like, I wish more religious people who believed in God had that idea that just because you believe in God, like obviously we should want to live forever physically on this earth.
It's interesting because the strangeness that is life, the dual glistening ball, the transcendental object that is life, is it's all open to interpretation because it's out of the box. You see, so Sam Harris is another person you've talked about, and he said it's not death that's the problem, it's life that's the problem, because life is the intermittent object between these two spaces, right? And it's kind of interesting because between these two spaces you've got a somewhat known, which is like I don't remember anything before I was born, and a somewhat unknown after your death. And I'll challenge you on one of your videos, because now, and I don't know, but you say meaninglessness ends at the point of consciousness. So after you die, your life has lost meaning. I mean, sort of, but we still talk about Alexander the Great, right? I mean, your meaning does live on through cultural enterprises and human enterprises, but your own conscious meaning is gone, right? So
yeah, and that's so when I say like death is the end of meaning and that your life is meaningless if you die, I'm implying that it's meaningless for you as the individual. Obviously, other people can still remember your life and everything, but in terms of self-interest, it doesn't help you if you're dead and they're remembering your life. So.
But it also depends on the sort of mind state of the person, because if Alexander the Great, for example, wanted to live on in the minds of men, but didn't want to live on as a being himself, for example, because maybe that's how he wanted it to go, because he couldn't live with himself in his psychological state for conquering half the world or something, then he would have succeeded in his mandate, however brief the human experiment, right?
Right. I guess. I mean, if that's someone's end game, if they just want to be remembered and leave a legacy, if that's what they set out to do and that's what they achieved, I guess I can't argue with that if that's what they wanted. I guess to me personally, I was always trying to influence people to not care so much about their legacy or not care how they'd be remembered after they die, because I just want them to be focused on let's cure aging, let's live forever, and like almost trying to increase their selfishness in a sense. Like, be selfish enough to want to survive and live forever. You know, this is your mind. You only got one conscious, right? Like, take it seriously.
That's actually where I was trying to push you, that word selfishness. So what do you think about selfishness? Is it good in the Ayn Randian way, which is the extremist perspective of, you know, selfishness forever, or is it only okay in moderation, or is it only okay in certain ways you look at it? For example, human health, human consciousness, expanding the human life, that's okay. But, you know, misuse of resources because you're selfish and you destroy the planet, that's not okay. You know, where do you draw the line at selfishness? For example, if humans are consuming animals that overconsume in order to preserve themselves, is that okay to be selfish? You know, that's perfect. Thank you for bringing that word up. That's where I was pushing you.
Right. I've always thought of selfishness as though it's inescapable. Like, the people who claim that they're not selfish, like, no, everyone by default has to act selfishly, because like, even if you do an altruistic thing, you still want it to do it for your own reasons, right? So I've always thought of selfishness as that it's like unavoidable for everyone. But I guess, yeah. But let's see. We'll go back to your animal question. Could you rephrase the question with the animals?
The animals. I've forgotten that one. But
obviously, if we should want to save the environment for our own selfish reasons, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So that's good for everyone else. I sometimes I don't want it to, like, I think it's good because most people aren't going to understand selfishness in the way I'm talking about it, as though it's a good thing. So I think generally, probably, I want to promote the idea that, like, we should want to, you know, even we want to help other people, want to cure aging, not just for ourselves, but for everyone. It's like, it's a humanitarian goal. And I think that's important also to get more people on board with transhumanism, right? Just like Aubrey de Grey. Aubrey de Grey is the perfect poster boy example of that. He's like totally in it for humanitarian reasons. Like, he cares more about saving other people's lives than his own life, you know? He's like the ultimate hero.
Yeah, understood. So this is kind of my point. You can be selfish in the fact of being altruistic. It's selfishness for yourself involves saving the environment, right? Because you're symbiotic with nature, you're symbiotic with the relationship you have with the environment, and so in order for yourself to preserve yourself as a being, you have to preserve the ocean. So you have to come up with ways to fix the ocean, the pollution in the ocean. You have to come up with ways to fix the pollution in the air pollution. You have to come up with better nutrition in plants. You have to come up with ways to save the rainforest. That's your selfish prerogative, is to save nature. Your selfish prerogative is to go to space. Your selfish prerogative is to do all these things, advanced technology. Even if you have to delve into some religious aspects, I mean, it's your selfish prerogative. I mean, it's not an unhealthy word, because I notice a lot of people come into this space and they get confused. They say, oh, we can't be selfish because selfishness is only ever done bad. It depends on the way you look at it, right?
Yeah, exactly. And also, it's like, if we cure aging, and right now people are wanting to save the environment for their children, their grandchildren, or whatever, but they think they're going to be dead and out of the picture. But if we cure aging, then they'll have more incentive to treat the environment well, and because then their own selfish reasons, you know, they want to live in the good planet with healthy air and clean food and everything. So, yeah. But selfishness, ultimately, it's like that desire to live and desire to survive. That is, I think, the core of transhumanism. That's like kind of the thing that binds us all together. We might have different strategies as how to get there. Like, a lot of the transhumanists want to more use technology and merge with machines, and I'm more of the type of transhumanist that wants to focus on curing aging more so than merging with technology, because like, I'm like really kind of afraid of merging with technology, which is kind of very different transhumanist perspective. Well, I'm so afraid of it because, I mean, obviously transhumanists are precautious when it comes to merging with machines and they want to do it right. But I'm like, oh gosh, if I merge with machines, like what's to stop us from, like, what's to stop them from hacking into my brain, just erasing all of my files, you know, and like, so I want to like live forever physically in the flesh, you know. That's a whole nother thing, you know. What do you think about that? Are you more of like wanting to live forever physically in the flesh, or do you want to become like a machine?
Well, yeah, it's an interesting question, and yeah, right now I'm open to most possibilities. Enhancements are good. I mean, humans are being enhanced all over the place. I would love to speed up my cognition, so absolutely, so I can become smarter and faster. But I do have those concerns about what if somebody hacks your brain? What if somebody, you know, turns an ad on and you can't get the ad off? You know? So you know, there are concerns, but you know, biological extension would be at the forefront. What you're doing is right well within the realm of possibility. I think genes. Your selfish genes, you know, sort of pushing us to to reverse aging. I think I agree with you at the moment. To slow down the aging process, to you know, to prolong life as we are, so that we can understand. But on an exponential curve basis, technology is, you know, like Ray Kurzweil says, 1, 3, 4, 30 is a billion. You know, you end up with a society that's so rapidly evolving. I'm not sure we're going to run into, like, as long as you get to that 2030, 2045, 2050, whatever mark it is, where computers are making computers, society will be so rapidly changing so rapidly. I'm not sure you have to sort of make a decision at that point, but we just got to get to that point first.
Yes.
Which will be kind of crazy. I mean, quantum computing is going to rapidly change everything all over again, and that's only just a few years away. Yeah, biological computing as well, but yeah, the quantum computing. I mean, that's gonna, if you have money in a bank, I mean, you're not gonna be. It's not gonna be safe forever. Quantum computers will be able to crack that. You know, so yeah, so society is rapidly changing, but I think I'm with you on the whole aging process. I think if we can slow down the aging process and potentially reverse it, that's not just through some magic pill, which I want to ask about the next thing. It's not just through some magic pill, but it's also diet and exercise and all the other things that go with it. You went on the street and you asked people about the magic pill, about would they take the aging pill. And a lot of them, straight out of the bat, well, what you put up, you know, they said yes. But how did you find that whole experience? And did you just take a sample of yeses, and was there some no's and other things in there? How did you find that whole experience?
That was when I was just, yeah, getting a taste of how people respond to the kind of philosophy that I would preach all the time on Facebook and everything. And it was, yeah, kind of real surreal how people are just so like suicidal, like they have a death urge or something. It's like they want to die even if given the option. But I think they're just fooling themselves, most of them. I think it's fox and the sour grapes. It's like they would want to live forever. If it was available, they would choose it probably, but it's because they think it's out of their reach that they're going to tell themselves, oh, I don't even want that anyways. You know, it's a coping mechanism, I think, for the most part, probably most people. It's because they've already given up. They've already accepted in their head that they're going to die one day, and so just changing that belief system is so hard. It's like it's such a big rooted belief system that they're going to die, that changing that is really hard for a lot of people. And I think if yeah, that's basically. But yeah, I think like it was probably like over 50% of people were saying they don't want to live forever. So that just gives you some idea. I definitely, I think.
I mean, forever is a long time, but if you had to reduce that down to, would you like to live an extra 100, 200 years? I wonder how rapidly how different the response would be for people. I mean, forever is a long time to live. And you didn't mention
Right.
what the context was. I mean, forever in a jar, forever as a human.
Right.
You know, you just say live forever, right? And I
Right.
mean, hell, for example, is living forever. I mean, some people, but like some people would prefer to live in hell because they're so scared of the other options. You know, so for them, hell isn't too bad of a place. But yeah, so it's like if you had have said, would you like to live for an extra 100 years? You just won the lottery. Here's the ticket. I would like to see the change in
Oh,
the
it'd be
answer.
drastically different. Or even if I rephrase the question to be like, would you want to never age, just stop aging? You can still die from other things, you know, you can still kill yourself, but you're not going to age. Like, probably most people would say yes. So I purposefully phrased it in a way pertaining specifically to eternal life because I just wanted to show that dynamic as well. Like how many people are really against the idea of living forever, which to me is weird enough. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. Well, I reckon do it again. This is just a shock jock statement. But if you can do it again and say, would you like to live 100 more years? You know what I mean? And I
No,
reckon 80% plus would take that. I reckon they'd take it. And you know what? Once they got to that 100-year lotto, you'd say 100 more years, you just want another ticket. They'd say it again. They'd say, yeah, I'll do it again. I'll do it again. I'll do it again. And you know, 10,000 years later, they'll still be taking one more 100 years, you know. But you say, oh, here's 10,000 years. Oh, I don't want 10,000 years. Sounds like a long time. But it's because, you know, the longer you live, the more you value life, the more the more value you place on life over other finite resources, right?
yeah, and if people just had better lives, like for instance, if we had a world where it's like we had universal basic income and everyone was like not having to stress about their next paycheck or whatever, so many more people would want to live forever in a world where it's just automation. They don't have to work a job. They can just have all their resources, everything handed to them free. So many more people would want to live forever in that type of world.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
they
And
just
if
they
you
don't have they don't have the vision of what how cool the future's actually going to be because most people don't know about the new technologies that are coming out. They don't know how cool when we have like 16K virtual reality and it's like you can have
perfect.
anything you want, you know.
Yeah, because it would mean the future reality doesn't mean like people say, oh well, you know, it'll be a non-violent hellhole. But actually, you just mentioned it. That's what I was going to say. With virtual reality, you can live in as violent a world as you want. You can create an infinitely violent experience, and you would just wake up out of that, kind of like that movie Inception, right? So, you know, you just go down to a substrate world. You could live 30, 40, 50 years in your violent hellhole that you created in your mind, and you'd come back out, and there you go. You're actually still just, it's been a couple of hours, and you're just like out of your bed, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it's like people don't get it how cool virtual reality is going to be. It's like I mean, just think about how cool a good movie is. And it's like, but virtual reality, it's like you'll be able to be in the movie. You'll be a character in the movie. You'll be to recreate. You'll be able to be in the movie with your favorite characters. Like take your favorite movie, you could put yourself right in there and talk to them, and they'll be talking to you. I could be talking to Willy Wonka and Tinkerbell, you know. So yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So you know, it's a fascinating thing. So let's talk about some of your other feats. I want to like let's talk about Pastor Anderson. You went to the Baptist church. You know, he's known as a bit of he's a bit nuts sometimes, but you know, he's a well-known preacher on the internet, Baptist preacher. And you went and faced him, and this video exploded, went absolutely viral. I mean, you got huge amounts of views across the net. How was that? I mean, how was he? You know, did he treat you well? And tell us about that whole experience. That was incredible.
He was really nice. He was, and I thought he would be, of course, because I wasn't like antagonizing him with like the things that he would consider to be degenerate or anything like so. We really actually had a lot of common ground. Um, but yeah, he ultimately, to the questions about curing aging, he I think he was okay with it, but it's like I was like trying to push like, why wouldn't you though? Why shouldn't like I wish like Christian churches like would actually donate more money to anti-aging. Like that would be a cool thing. But I guess I can see why they're not, because they're all just so convinced that they're gonna, live forever in heaven. It's not a big priority to them. But he wasn't so much against it, but he was against the technological aspects of it, like mark of the beast stuff, And that's where Christians are really going to divide with transhumanists. I think a lot of Christians and different religions would be fine with curing aging, but they're going to draw the line somewhere, and that line is when we start merging with technology too much to the point where we're putting, brain implants, and that's probably where they're going to have issues. He was awesome, and then later, like he even like talked about me in one of his sermons, and he was nice to me. So yeah, I don't have any grudges against him.
Jack from the island. Is he like Jack from the island?
Oh, he looks so much like that guy. Absolutely. Yeah, everyone says that.
Yeah. I saw that was a top comment on like all his videos. But it's really interesting that you went and did that, because it's just such a different world sort of clashing. He's pretty fundamentalist, which is fine. I don't think he thinks that everybody's he assumes sort of everybody's sinful. Like he puts himself in that category.
Yeah.
Can you explain the hell thing? I mean,
Yeah. So hell, I've put on my videos on my YouTube channel. I've said oftentimes that I'd rather go to hell than cease to exist. I mean, ceasing to exist, like you were saying before, like I'd rather live in hell than never exist or cease to exist. So, but hell is a possibility. I've heard transhumanists talk about the possibility of simulated hells in the future. I've brought this up in my articles that like as a way to deter criminals in the future. It's not just that we could, they wouldn't want to be criminals, because we could make it so like we could threaten them with like, okay, if you commit a crime as bad as murder, you're going to go into a simulated hell that's going to be like forever, way worse than like a prison. But then, a lot of transhumanists would say that's way too unethical, way too mean to do that. So I understand that as well. It's just a different perspective, different way of thinking. And then Pastor Anderson thought I was going to hell, of course, because I, at that time, was an atheist and didn't believe. He still thinks I'm going to hell, even though I believe in God now, just because I don't have the right doctrine. But, yeah, what was I going to say? He thinks I'm going to hell because I don't believe, and I was bringing up to him, and I bring this up to Christians all the time. Does it make sense that God would damn people to hell over what they believe, when belief, as the way I see it, is not even a choice? We don't voluntarily decide what we believe. Belief to me is not a choice. It's like your skin color. It's like you believe what you believe and you can't help it. The people who believe in God, they don't choose to believe in God. They're just forced to believe in God. Their mind makes them. And the people who are atheists, their mind forces them to be an atheist. So it's like, it never made sense to me that God would judge people over their beliefs. It was weird to me.
Yeah, I've never understood this whole cultural notion that I was raised fundamentalist, by the way, so I understand. I mean, I'm a fundamentalist religion. I went to church 3-4 days a week. I preached all the time until I was 16. I get the religious thing more than most religious people. Most religious people have never been to the church in their life, and they're like, oh, I'm the most religious. But I actually was full-on fundamentalist for about 16 years. So, I mean, we're talking 3-4 nights of church a week while I was doing uni, while I was doing school, while I was doing that my whole life. So I get that. It's like, you know, if people say, oh, you've never been in a religion, I'm absolutely mad fundamentalist, okay? So people got to get off my back on that. I know religion. I get it. Probably more than most people. You know, really small community, pretty much like an Amish community, hardcore fundamentalists. So, you know, if people want to go at me and they say, oh, you know, you don't understand my religion, or you don't get religion. No, I crazy fundamentalist. Okay, sixth generation. So, you know, so, but. You know, but I'm just trying to make a point that I still, even when I was raised in that context, I was like, well, what about people with learning disabilities? What about people who can't read this book? I mean, it's this thick. I mean, like, and I was also thinking about, like, what about people, like, if, you know, who never heard the word, you know, and I know that they have answers to this stuff. What about Aztec people? I mean, they were over there sacrificing to their gods, doing the thing. And then, you know, and then you have to come and throw people into hell, essentially, by spreading the word. And then I was thinking, wow, that sounds pretty unethical. Like, you could just, like, literally have got rid of the book and, you know, everyone would have... So, but it has to be preached because the Bible is a self-referencing machine. That's how the Bible works. It's its own dictionary. It's its own self-referencing machine. It's its own prophetic machine. And so, like, everything you have to do relates back to the Bible in the context of the Bible, except for when you don't. But for the most part, it is a self-referencing machine. So when you bring up these arguments with Christians, they say, all right, let's go back to the Bible and let's use the Bible to explain itself and why the word will be spread all over the earth because Jesus said so, and on and on and on. So, you know, and in that way you can't really defeat it because it's a prophetic. It's sort of a virus, you know, that is a self-fulfilling prophecy, if you know what I mean. So that, but to me, that was like, it's kind of like, what's the point of that? What's the point of like a religion that is sort of, you know, I mean, I never really got it. Like even when I was in religion, like hardcore, I still didn't really get it because I was like, you know, there's so many ways I could interpret this, you know, there's so many ways I could read this scripture and it could go either way on this thing, you know, and you know, why does sometimes we look at the Ten Commandments and we take that as gospel, and then sometimes we say, well, actually that whole Old Testament stuff, wipe that away because Jesus cleansed it and it means nothing now. But hang on, back here when Moses made the Ten Commandments, he said don't steal and don't thieve and don't covet and don't do all these other things, but they don't actually matter anymore because Jesus said so. Just follow these rules. Actually, no. Actually, now they're it goes round and round like that. It's confusing, and I guess you have to pick a doctrine, and that's why there's so many different doctrines, over 40,000 doctrines, where they are all spread out and they say different things, and you can swap and pick. But what do you think about that whole idea? Confusing for me.
I think it is very confusing, and that's the way, to me, God, the concept of God has to be in the box of confusion, because you can never know for sure if there is a God, what the God is like. You can't know how the God is going to judge us. You can't know if the God has revealed himself through different holy books and what holy books, and it's all in the realm of hypothesis and questions, and we don't know the answers. So I think it's worth taking a guess. This is one thing I do on my channel is I promote the idea of like the hypothetical God, which I'm sure you've seen me talk about the hypothetical God. So it's like, that's what I tell people. It's like, you can fear the possibility of God, but ultimately don't let someone else tell you what the rules are. You have to figure out what you think the rules of the hypothetical God, if the God exists or not, we don't know, but it makes sense to prepare just in case. That's the logic that I tell people, like, hey, live a good life, be the best person ever, go above and beyond, try to be the perfect person, so that if there was a God, it's going to be okay for you. God's going to welcome you and give you eternal life. But also, if there's not a God, we better also try to cure aging and live forever. So kind of have the best of both worlds, the best of religion, which is that fear of the God thing. It keeps people moral, and I think it's also good for society to have people believing that there's the God watching them and judging them and testing them all the time. It's like, because that's a judgment you can't escape, and so I think that'll help. It's going to help society at large kind of maintain its morality and things like that. Because if people think they can get away with anything in the privacy of their homes, they're going to be less inclined to be good, you know. So I think that fear of God is a good thing. I think it has benefits.
It reminds me, what you just said reminds me of Stolarov's wager. You know, Gennady Stolarov? He's
Yes.
got his wager where it's basically like, if you don't try, you die. You know that game theory? Have you ever seen that one? His wager? His game theory?
I'm not familiar with it. I can't remember if I've seen it.
I'll send it to you. It reminds me very much of that. But essentially, yeah, if you hedge your bets, like you're saying, hedge your bets, yeah, you might live. I mean, there's a possibility, but that's only like a small possibility. The real possibility is more of a idea that just cure aging. It's just
Right.
on the.
My personal approach to this philosophically, to like the best strategy to live forever is like, it's like, of course, cure aging, that comes first, cure all diseases, but then also as a side add-on, you can put the Pascal's wager argument, but a modified Pascal's wager. Because when I was trying to do Pascal's wager, I realized quickly as an atheist, oh, actually, I can't believe. Pascal is telling me, okay, just believe, because that's a wise wager, believe in the God. But I'm like, hey, I can't believe, and it's not a choice. So what the heck can I do? All I could do at that point was act like there's a God. Right? I act like my actions are being tested. And that would be further motivation to, I guess, be extra good and come up with rules you think that would make sense. That if there was a God, the God would kind of judge people according to certain moral standards and everything. As a precaution, that seems to make sense for everyone across the board, whether you're an atheist or you believe in God or agnostic. It's like, makes sense to just consider that maybe there's a God judging us and testing us, and that this life is some crazy test. I mean, even the simulation theory, it's really not far off, because if we're in a simulation, which is possible, then you have to ask, well, who created the simulation? And whoever created that simulation could have the power to judge us. Obviously, whoever created the simulation is observing us all, and therefore this could be a test of some kind, or it could be like a simulation of an insane asylum in the future, and we're all just in here being treated, you know, for different insanities, and that this whole thing is like a therapy for us, you know, or a prison. I've heard different theories that what this world could be, you know. But what do you think about the simulation theory? Oh
yeah, the simulation theory is not hard to imagine, especially if you've ever played RTS games, because I mean we're so close to essentially the only step up from an RTS game is having those people have consciousness. I mean, that's it. I mean, if those people had consciousness, you could move them around as if they were doing what you want, but they've got consciousness. I mean, you'd play the game differently. You'd probably you know, not be so you know. So yeah, no, I don't see it as a far off the realm of possibility, especially when you consider that for transhumanists, it's all about computation. So the universe is quite large when you think about it. I mean, infinitesimally small when you consider about it in the grand scheme of things, but actually it's quite large. And transhumanists want to turn the matter, essentially, into computing power. So you could utilize through Dyson spheres across the whole universe, the whole of the universe as a giant computer. That's a lot of power. That's a lot of power. So that's a lot of computing mass. So you know, to create virtual reality worlds, it's not out of the realm of possibility at all. I mean, if you utilize the mass of the whole universe to do that, you're talking tens of quadrillions of new simulations that you could yourself enter. My philosophy on this is not a linear expression at all, because since the internet and Gutenberg's printing press both being fundamental to the spread of information, you've had the religions which have been at war, but they come down to this thing called the golden rule, which you touched on. You said, it doesn't matter who you are. They basically all revolve around this golden rule. So if you're hedging your bets every single way, because now as cultures have become aware of each other, I mean, before the age of exploration, the 1400s, the Europeans went out and explored everyone. Everybody didn't know where anybody was. Europeans connected the world, right? So Christian Europe connected the world in a way which I had no idea. So it's like as if we're building rockets and going to Mars, etc., or Alpha Centauri or something like that. But what Europeans did was they unlocked the alien worlds and alien cultures. They unlocked Asia. They unlocked India. They unlocked the Americas. They unlocked all these swaths of cultures, as if we went out into space today and we found the myriad of alien cultures that were out there now. Now, in doing this, and through the internet and through the Gutenberg's printing press, the information age dispersed. So cultures got muddled. Cultures all got mixed up and muddled, which then we found out, okay, religion is basically about this golden rule hypothesis. Some religions aren't compatible with others, and there's a lot of clash there. We're getting into an age of the clash of civilizations today, where these cultures are not going to get along. They're going to fight out for their dominance. Europe is a prime example. It came up in the 2016 debate, Hillary versus Trump, Muslims versus Christians, clash of civilizations, all that sort of stuff. But
yep.
It's a linear expression of culture. And I think what life is none of this linear stuff. It's not, well, hypothesis, but it's based on whatever came before God, or whatever became before life itself. And that doesn't necessarily mean the Big Bang, because there's plenty of people who hypothesize. Even Pastor Anderson brought this up in your discussion with him, that we could just be in an infinite big bounce. So the universe expands out, it collapses, it expands out, it collapses, it's on a repeat shuffle. You and me could have lived our whole life out, and as we marginally move forward in our consciousness stream, actually we've done this a quadrillion times already. It wouldn't mean anything, because we'd have no free choice. We're just always doing this. We've done it a quadrillion times. If you're in a multiverse, I mean, maybe it's slightly different. I mean, maybe it's like I said, one word or one tiny inch, a tiny bit of a word, I mean, quadrillion times over. But my idea is that, like, it's all based on probability. So once life is out of the box, whether that's God or whether that's probability factor, nature abhors of void. And this hypothesis is much more scary than whatever Christians and all the others have to offer, because once it's out of the box, it's all based on probability. So the probability that you and I are having this conversation is actually really high, because people usually say, well, the probability that life exists actually has a lot of zeros on it, and the probability that you exist actually is really infinitesimally small. But I actually say, no, hang on, that's actually a really large probability once life is out of the box, regardless of however that came about, because you're open to infinite probabilities then. So what that means in my head is that death is essentially a time machine, because your consciousness is bound to come back as another reinstated figure of probability. But that's scary, because that means it could come back as anything, anywhere, anytime, in any context. So you could end up in hell forever, quote unquote forever, because of probability factor that your consciousness will reinstate itself in some other dimensional space. You could come back as a monkey, you could come back as an asteroid, it doesn't matter. Once life is out of the box, the probabilities are infinite, and you have quadrillions, quintillions of years in order to fulfill that prophecy within a collapsing universe, within a rebounding state of multiverses. So once life is out of the box, there's so much probability factor that your consciousness is you're stuck in an infinite loop of life, and that's actually the scariest thing. That's the probability factor. So that's kind of my idea.
Like that everything will just repeat and repeat and repeat. I've heard that theory.
But it's not within this state of human flesh. It's based on your consciousness, which is a configuration of whatever that is. And that's my idea. I mean, so the likelihood that this happens is actually really, really high, really high, like inevitable, which is why we're having this conversation. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. Now, the simulation theory, yeah, it just leaves room for so much different possibilities, as far as like if this is what the simulation people, they never talk about though. Like, I want to hear their answers to like, what do they think? Like, what they think an advanced civilization created this, but what type of advanced civilization would create a world with so much suffering? It's the same problem with the problem of evil that atheists always, they use this argument against Christians. So what type of future society would create a world with so much suffering? Especially because when you think of a future transhumanist utopian society, you think of a very ethical society, a very moral society that has tried to eliminate suffering. So it seems very counterproductive to create a whole simulation with all these conscious soul people with, souls and consciousnesses, and then just like make them all suffer and make life really, hellish for like so many people. It's like, whoa, how do they explain that?
Yeah, that's another thing. I mean, within the context of a computer, I mean, if the computer is self-augmentated and doesn't have ethical limits, that would also mean like it wouldn't care about the as long as it ran within the defined limits, create life. I mean, if that's its mandate, I mean, it wouldn't worry so much about ethics or whatever. So yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, the simulation hypothesis is it's one to ponder. Advanced computers in the future, which are projecting back. I mean, I think on your channel I saw somebody, I think it was Sam Harris, talking about this would be a social experiment for an advanced Christian community, for example, who are running the end of days simulation or something. So the possibility that Jesus, Muhammad, or somebody else is coming back is extremely high, and you better become a Christian today because that's the simulation that's being run.
That is totally possible. That's a really cool theory, and I know that clip. Yeah. But there's something else you were saying, like your consciousness could be reinstated again and again and again. Now, do you think that if your consciousness gets reinstated in the future, let's say hypothetically, if you were to die, but then you get reinstated in the future, do you think you will have you will literally be the same brain and like the one you are right now, but then again, like will it be you, or will it just be like a copy of you? It's the same thing with like
teleportation.
Yeah, the argument of like, because I've always thought that a perfect copy of someone won't be that person. It'll just be a copy.
For me, I've never worried about it because you're still that consciousness, right? So it doesn't bother me too much because whether it's me or not, I mean, I shed 100 million skin cells a day. I mean, are those skin cells still part of me once they're down on the floor? You know what I mean? So it's kind of the idea. It's like, over your lifetime, you sort of half regenerate yourself. With modern medicine advancing so fast, you're not probably going to end up having the same heart, when you're 60. I mean, are you still you really? Even in this modern day, you know, when you're shedding so much skin, you get a haircut, you cycle through so much hair, through so much skin, you know, you get different replacements. Like a car, we're becoming like a car, we're becoming like something you insure, you know, so I mean, are you really you anyway? I mean, it doesn't, for me, it wouldn't matter if I went through a teleporter from X to Y, because I'm still just some conscious being inside a biological shell on the other end, and I look like me, and I feel like myself, and there's nothing over on the other where I began to really argue with me that I'm not me. So I don't worry about that, because it's...
So let's say we have teleporters in the future, like Star Trek. Okay, you would literally take one of those? I'd be so afraid. I would no. I'd be like, no way.
With any advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. That's what they say, right? So.
Oh right, yeah.
So some people, if you took this Skype technology to the 1500s and you said, hey, we can connect across the world, you know, some people would say that's sorcery. You know, hang that person up from the tower. You know, Inquisition, come and take these people away to the madhouse. They're using witchcraft and sorcery. But, you know, Christians utilize these tools. They pay money to utilize these tools to spread the word of Jesus Christ. So, you know, once people become accustomed to a tool, you know, and become safe enough, I mean, people go from fearing it to utilizing it. Within, whether religious or not. I mean, you've got to be Amish, or you've got to be some neo-Luddite religion and or non-religion in order to reject technological advances on the basis that they're scary, or they're unethical, or or you know, or all these other arguments that these people bring up. You know, because, you know, once they're proof safe, I mean, what's the difference between teleporting and jumping on an aircraft? I mean, you know, if you were still jumping on an aircraft which had a higher probability of failing, it was more damaging to the environment when you have to end up shipping all of the stuff over to create this thing, plus it uses fuel and energy. I mean, if you were still taking aircraft in the future when everybody was utilizing teleportation technology and causing damage to the environment, you know, people might want to throw you in jail and say, this guy is still using an aircraft.
I'll be using a boat. I'm too afraid to. I'll probably be too afraid to fly in planes, even in the hundreds of years in the future when they're like super safe.
But you get my point, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the idea. Its technologies are indistinguishable from magic, and you know, they're just simply tools. Even the religious community gets on and gets aboard and embraces.
Yeah, I think that both types of transhumanists, the ones that are just into curing aging, or the ones that want to totally merge with technology and put chips in the brain, both of those should be really pushed. And we need to excel all the technologies really, because the technology about you know. I personally want people to get chips in their heads, because they'll have so much more intelligence and smarts. I won't be getting the chip in my head, don't get me wrong, but I want other people to, and scientists, so that they'll be smarter and have more computational power in their brain to cure aging faster. So it's like a selfish reason why I want other people to get chips in their heads. I'm not going to do it.
Why won't you do it? You're like a big preacher of this stuff.
Because I'm afraid of the chip in the brain, especially. Because like I said, like if there's a chip in the brain, it gives like that company, whoever made that chip, too much control. It's like, what are they doing? We're like afraid of like Facebook spying on us and everything like that, and the government. Well, what can they do if they have a chip in your brain? You know.
But you're okay with putting other people through that process.
Well,
Yes, you know how bad that sounds, right?
Well, I would advise them not to do it, I guess. but I could see the value to society if there are people doing that as well.
Do you know
Um,
one of the largest chip manufacturers in the world?
um, I don't know.
The
I'm
one of the
thinking when
largest one of the
you
largest
talk
chip.
about chip manufacturer, it makes me think of like the like Elon Musk, because Elon Musk is doing the Neuralace.
Well, yeah,
Is that?
he's doing Neuralace, but the chip manufacturers would be, something like Qualcomm. Have you ever heard of Qualcomm?
Oh,
Check out Qualcomm. These guys are good. Big American company based in Taiwan. And if there's a World War III, this is something that people don't talk about. MH3117, that plane went down full of Qualcomm people. It went down. Full of Qualcomm people. But if there's a World War III, it's going to be over the silicon chips being produced out of Taiwan through the Qualcomm company, which are in line with your hypothesis about future, computational power, increasing brain computational power. It's all being done through Qualcomm. It's very interesting in that regard. MH3117, people should check it out. Yeah, but anyway,
whoa.
I don't
But
really.
you know what I do want? I might not get a chip in my brain, but I definitely want advancements in the form of like nootropics, and let's get the limitless pill. Let's get a pill where I can take and just like be super smart, like without having to put chips in my brain. I don't even like metal in my teeth. I got all the amalgam fillings removed out of my teeth because I just don't want to have like mercury and metals in my teeth. um
So you're a
and then
naturopath.
like,
You're a
is this
naturopath life
yeah, I'm
extensionist.
kind of a real natural super health nut type of person. And then also, like, if they're putting a chip in your brain, is that the plan is to get that connected to the internet, right? And
Hmm.
so what if that creates weird radio waves, like Wi-Fi waves, that are bad for your brain? I don't know. We'll probably try to figure out some way to fix that problem. But
Yeah, well, it's going to happen because our fingers are sluggish. They're too slow. Our eyes are too slow to read. We're too slow as humans to keep up with the technology, and then as people advance, they become even slower. I mean, in finance, okay, if you work in finance, you know that about 88%, 90% of all finance is done robotically. There's hardly any people doing finance anymore. It's all robots. It's all robots. It's part of the reason that got me into this because this show is called Detonation, right? But then everything is robotic. I mean, it's all robots. I mean, the whole stock market is run by robots. The whole options market, derivatives market, all the markets are run by robots. So I ended up just talking myself in circles, following robots all day. And when you realize that all of the robots are in control of the markets, and you realize that the president is running around reacting to the stock market and reacting to robots, then you realize that the robots are running the country. Then you realize the robots are running the economy. Then you realize that the people who are controlling the robots are actually running the country. And then you realize how much power the robots have. And you go, whoa, hang on. So you mean Xi Jinping doesn't have as much power as I thought? You mean Donald Trump doesn't have as much power as I thought? You mean the robots are already in charge of $21 trillion economies? So the robots are in charge already, and it's through the financial markets, absolutely awash in robotic control. People sit on the edge, the tantalizing edge of going, oh my God, is there going to be a stock market crash? I don't know. It's up to the robots. It's all up
right.
to the robots. So the robots are already in control of the economy.
And the robots will be in control of our own biology, right? Because they'll be like deciding what designer babies get made and what's the best way to form a human in the womb and everything. And so they'll be like literally shaping us. And so yeah, they're going to be controlling us to a large extent.
So they're already in control of the economy. They took over control of the economy, and that's what we talk about on this show. We talk about Karl Marx. He said at the end of the capitalist regime, capitalism will turn all financial, and the financial there's financialization of everything. And if you look at the markets, that's exactly what happens is happening. It is financialization of everything, and that's all controlled by robots. Robots are seeping into the military sphere like mad. Boston Dynamics, Google DeepMind, all of the arms race in AI and stuff. The military drones. The battlefield is becoming an electronic warfare field. The robots are seeping into the military like crazy. It won't be that many years until humans start to come out of the loop of the military even more. Robots are taking over the military. Robots, as you said, robots are starting to take over health. They're starting to do surgeries. They're starting to take over the designer babies. They're starting to take over genetics. They're starting to take over. Scientific fields, so labs.
Traveling. Did you already say the cars?
No, we haven't mentioned the cars. You're right.
Yeah.
Like aircraft, they already took that over years ago. Yeah. Shipping is and the thing with AI and self-driving cars is it's going to be safer because the AI will be able to learn billions of times over extra fast. So like when you have a person, they sit there and they go, all right, I have to learn to do this one and do this one and put my feet on the pedals and I have to learn how to dodge. Once the AI learns that, it'll have billions of cars to learn simultaneously. And recognize billions of patterns that one person in one country will never be able to learn that global dynamic of patterns and stuff. So the cars will be much safer, but so they'll take over transportation. They'll just start taking over everything, and that's the point.
And then one day we might have an AI president, right?
Well, yeah, I mean. It's funny, like we said, like the president already reacts to the robots. They already react to the financial markets, which was all robotic. So it's like, yeah, I mean, robots with a human face. I mean, yeah, maybe, yeah. Sorry, yeah.
Oh, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
About when you broke away from Jehovah's Witnesses. The Jehovah's Witness religion, did you find yourself fearing death more? Because all of a sudden, did you lose your belief in the afterlife at that point? And so did you fear death more when that happened?
No, not really. No, not at all. I just, no, not fear. Just sort of reconfiguring what life actually means. Just oh, okay, that's cool. So, Jehovah's Witnesses suck. I don't like those guys anymore. I was raised that. So now I have to try and find it out on my own. And what that means. And the unfortunate thing is that, Christians are going through a very sad and sorry state right now. Because actually, I lent on Christianity pretty hard. And they said, come, let me be a Christian, person. I'll be Catholic or I'll be this or that. But the problem is they were going through so many scandals at the time. It sort of turned me off, and then you look at the perceived weakness of the Pope in Rome and this 21st century sort of, gooishness, and I didn't like it. And so I just thought, I'll have a quick look at what else is on offer, and there's a whole world of things on offer. And that kind of raises a lot of questions in itself, because there's a lot of cultures out there developing their own sort of unique perspectives on this topic. So, no, it didn't make me fear it. It just made me go, oh, okay, there's plenty of possibilities out there as to what you've been raised by. It's time to reconfigure and rejig what you conceive of the notion of life as it is. That's my answer to that question.
All right, because I was gonna say, like when I lost my belief in God, it did definitely make me more afraid of death. I'm still now believing in God. I'm still as afraid of death as I was, but it's just like for me, it's like the losing of religion. I think that is. Essentially that can benefit the world, I guess, if people I want, in some sense, I want people to believe in God because I want people to fear God, fear the hypothetical God. But in another sense, I don't want them to take so much comfort in the idea of a God that they'll lose their motivation and interest to like cure aging, you
Mm.
know. And I could see, I want people to fear death because I think if more people fear death, then they will want to cure aging and just promote anti-aging stuff, right?
Mm. Yeah, so let's talk about this idea of curing aging, because why is it so important that it's about curing aging? What's so important about that notion?
Because aging is killing more people than any other cause. And yeah, I extensively watched so many Aubrey de Grey. You know, whenever I think of aging, I just think of Aubrey de Grey lectures. Just trying to, what can I repeat from an Aubrey de Grey lecture? He's the master of this. But yeah, aging sucks. Just, I mean, I'm looking at my parents; they're getting older. I'm looking in the mirror. I'm looking, seeing some lines on my face. You know, I'm getting the gray hair, white hair, and I'm just like, oh, what is going on here? We gotta fix this. I don't want to get old. I'm so afraid. I'm as afraid of. I am. Someone at my work asked me if I'd want to be live forever, even if I had to live forever as a decrepit old person. And I'm like, yeah, of course I would. Like, even though I hate aging, I'd still rather be an old and live forever as an old decrepit person. But yeah, aging just is a nightmare. Aging is the thing of nightmares.
Why do you think that it's taken till the 21st century in order to actually come up with the notion that this is a bad thing? Why do you think you're preaching this, and it's taken this long? Why?
I guess because I think people just well, it's the whole dragon tyrant thing, right? The dragon is the aging, represents aging, and then people just got so used to the dragon killing the village people every day. It's like they think that's the only way it could be. But now with technology and it's just looking more like we're in the future. Like the future's not somewhere over there, but like we're here already. So it's like giving people more hope. And I think Hollywood is also giving people more hope. There's some movies about anti-aging, like one of my favorites is In Time. Did you ever watch the movie In Time?
Yeah.
It's one of the best ever. And that's like, that, I think that could get popular. Like there needs to be more movies like that like show what the future could be. Like people want to be young, like we need to appeal to that people love youth and want to be young forever. So I think if we just stick to that, I think we can just get a lot more people on board with the anti-aging thing.
Have you ever thought about doubling up your campaign with beauty products, youthful products like that, in order to get sponsorships and stuff? Because there's a big fake anti-aging industry, beauty creams, hair creams. Women are big into looking youthful all the time, and all this sort of stuff in the beauty industry, and big cultural thing going back forever, the eternal youth. Do you ever think about, maybe you could convince some of these folk to join in your crusade?
I think that'd be a great place to start. I mean, like, we should be like, the transhumanists should be soliciting the modeling industry, and like getting involved with that whole crowd and like showing these models and stuff. Like, there's all these. Well, it's like what's out there to fix aging. I guess is not that great, but there's a lot of industry designed to try to, have that youthful skin and everything. But it's only attacking from the outside. Ultimately, we need like rejuvenative medicine, Aubrey de Grey's thing, because people can slab on all the creams and the potions, but it's just like it's not gonna do nothing if you're aging inside, right?
This is a good point, because if you wanted to sell it, because the main reason I say that is because it's very unsexy. Telomeres, protons, neutrons, all this DNA, whatever. I mean, it's all very unsexy. But if you got on board with these people who are internal beauty. You know, you don't want to look bad outside because you've got a clean inside. I mean, if you can fix your internal beauty, you can fix your external beauty. If you could somehow sell this notion, I mean, you could get swaths of normal people